Hello students, welcome you all to the 6th lesson of this academic session 2020-21. Today we are going to discuss a chapter, The Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood by Std-Xii. In this period we are going to introduce the narrator as well as the chapter to some extent. So Std-Xii, born in 1964 in Rourkela in Odisha, she spent her childhood as well as her adolescence in Hyderabad. She was educated in Hyderabad as well as in the United States of America. She began her career as a writer, and she has written a number of books which have been acclaimed worldwide. In this chapter, The Lost Spring, Stories of a Stolen Childhood. In fact, this excerpt has been taken from this book, Lost Spring, Stories of a Stolen Childhood. It is consisting of two parts. The first part is entitled, Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. And the second part is entitled, I Want to Drive a Car. So what is common between these two parts of the same chapters, that is Lost Spring, Stories of a Stolen Childhood, what is common between these two segments is that grinding poverty and the traditions which condemn the children to a life of exploitation. This is common in these two segments of the chapter. And these children are denied any opportunity of schooling and they are exposed to the street. In both the segments, to start with the first segment, Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. The protagonist is a boy, Sahib. His full name is Sahib-e-Alam, which can be translated as Lord of the Universe. So it is ironical that Sahib doesn't know the meaning of his name. In the second segment, the protagonist is Mukesh, belonging to a family of bangle makers, but he wanted to do something different. He wanted to drive a motor car, and because of the grinding poverty, it is not possible for him to drive a motor car. So that is why he wanted to be a motor mechanic. So there is something common between these two segments of the same chapters by Std-Xii. And the chapter starts with Std-Xii asking a few questions to Sahib and his friends while she saw them scrounging garbage. So she kept on asking them with a flurry of questions. Why are you scrounging garbage? Why don't you go to school? Why don't you put on chappals or shoes? So she kept on asking some of those questions. A flurry of questions, one after the other, and which seems to be just a question that can never be, suppose, answered by the children. But if you have gone through the chapter very minutely, suppose we must have observed that the Sahib, along with the other children, other rag pickers along with Sahib, they are very intelligent. For example, when on a particular occasion the narrator asked them a question, why don't you put on chappals? One of them said, because the chappals, the shoes, they have been kept too high and we cannot bring them down. For example, when the narrator asked a question to Sahib, why don't you go to school? Sahib said, because we don't have a school in our locality. For example, when Std-Xii asked them why there is a necessity of scrounging garbage, Sahib said that, okay, because they don't have anything else to do. So there is a lot of things that is common in between the two segments of this chapter. Grinding poverty and children are exposed to the street. They didn't have the opportunity of schooling, etc. So there is a lot of, common thing in between these two segments of the. Okay, students, in the next class, that would be lecture 7th, we are going to discuss the first segment of the chapter Lost Spring, that is, sometime I find a rupee in the garbage. Until then, Goodbye.